Commander Taemin stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's lights and his four eyes focused on the tactical display. For 2,000 years, his people had ruled the galaxy without question. They were the Vexhai and they feared nothing. The bridge crew worked silently around him. Every one of them had earned their place through combat and survival. Only the strongest lived long enough to serve on a warship. Only the smartest could navigate the politics of the Empire. "Commander," called Officer Yuna from her station. "The deep space sensors are picking up something strange." Taemin walked over to her console. Yuna was one of the best scientists in the fleet. If she said something was strange, it was worth investigating. "What do you see?" he asked. "Unknown ships approaching from the outer rim. Small fleet, maybe 20 vessels. They're broadcasting some kind of signal." Taemin looked at the data. The ships were tiny compared to Vexhai warships. Their design was completely foreign. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like them. "Are they a threat?" he asked. Yuna shook her head. "Impossible to tell from this distance. But Commander, they're broadcasting in mathematics, basic number sequences, geometric patterns. It looks like they're trying to communicate." This was interesting. Most species the Vexhai encountered either ran in terror or attacked immediately. Very few tried to talk first. Usually those that did were weak civilizations hoping to surrender before the fighting started. "Send word to General Wu Jin," Taemin ordered. "Tell him we have first contact with an unknown species. I'll handle the initial meeting." The communications officer nodded and sent the message. General Wu Jin commanded the entire sector fleet. He would want to know about any new species, especially one bold enough to approach Vexhai space. Taemin turned back to Yuna. "What else can you tell me about these ships? They appear to be using some form of chemical propulsion. Very primitive compared to our gravity drives. But Commander, there's something else. The energy signatures suggest these ships have been traveling for a very long time, possibly decades. They came from outside the galaxy. It's possible. The trajectory suggests they originated from somewhere in the void between spiral arms." This was even more interesting. The Vexhai had explored most of the galaxy's habitable systems. They had conquered 800 worlds and enslaved dozens of species. But they had never encountered anyone from outside their own galaxy. "Set a course to intercept," Taemin commanded. "But keep our weapons ready. Unknown doesn't mean friendly." The ship changed direction, its massive engines pushing it through space toward the unknown fleet. Taemin watched the tactical display as the distance closed. The alien ships maintained their course and continued broadcasting their mathematical sequences. "Commander," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a new transmission from the unknown fleet. It's different from the mathematical signals. Put it on the speakers." Static filled the bridge, then cleared into something resembling speech. The voice was strange, higher pitched than Vexhai voices, but clearly intelligent. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Min-Soo Kim of the United Earthship Resilience. We come in peace seeking contact with other intelligent species. We wish to establish diplomatic relations and cultural exchange. Please respond if you can understand this message." The bridge fell silent. Taemin looked around at his crew. They were all staring at the speakers with expressions of confusion and amusement. "Earth," Yuna said. "Commander, I've never heard of any planet called Earth, and United Earthship suggests they're from a single world." "A single world?" Taemin almost laughed. "They're claiming to represent an entire planet?" "How is that possible?" Officer June spoke up from the tactical station. "Commander, our databases show no record of any species achieving planetary unity. Most civilizations we encounter are still fighting among themselves when we arrive." This was true. The Vexhai had conquered hundreds of worlds, and almost all of them had been divided into competing nations or tribes. A species that had united their entire planet was unheard of. "Send a response," Taemin ordered. "Standard first contact protocol. Tell them to prepare for boarding and inspection." The communications officer transmitted the message. Within minutes, a response came back. "Vexhai vessel, this is Captain Kim. We appreciate your response. However, we must respectfully decline boarding by armed forces. We suggest a neutral meeting location where both sides can send small delegations. We have no hostile intentions." The bridge crew looked at each other in amazement. No one had ever refused a Vexhai boarding order. "Not ever. Did they just tell us no?" Officer June asked. "It appears they did," Taemin said. He was more curious than angry. "These humans were either very brave or very stupid. Send another message. Tell them that refusal to comply will be interpreted as a hostile act. Another response came quickly. We understand your position, but we cannot allow armed forces aboard our vessels until proper diplomatic protocols are established. We suggest meeting at coordinates we are transmitting now. Both sides can send representatives to negotiate terms of contact. Taman studied the tactical display. The human ships had not changed course or powered weapons. They seemed genuine in their desire for peaceful contact, but they were also clearly not going to be intimidated. Dr. Yuna, he said, what do you think? Could these humans pose any actual threat? Yuna looked at her sensors readings. Commander, their ships are much smaller than ours. Their technology appears primitive. I count maybe 3,000 individuals across their entire fleet. Even if they wanted to fight, they couldn't possibly win. Then why aren't they surrendering? Maybe they don't understand what they're facing. Or maybe they truly believe in this peaceful contact they keep talking about. Taman considered his options. He could simply destroy the human fleet and be done with it. But something about this situation intrigued him. These humans had traveled between galaxies. They had united their entire planet. And they were refusing to surrender to the most powerful military force in known space. Prepare a shuttle, he ordered. I'll meet with these humans personally. But keep the fleet at full alert. If this is some kind of trap, I want to be ready. Yes, Commander. As the shuttle was prepared, Taman found himself thinking about the humans' message. They spoke of peace and diplomatic relations. They wanted cultural exchange. These concepts were foreign to the HFY way of thinking. For 2,000 years, first contact had meant only one thing: conquest. But these humans seemed to think differently. They acted as if meeting new species was an opportunity rather than a threat. Taman wondered what kind of world could produce such thinking. He would find out soon enough. The shuttle launched toward the coordinates the humans had provided. Behind him, the greatest fleet in galactic history waited for his signal. Ahead of him, a small group of aliens from beyond the stars waited to meet their new neighbors. Neither side knew that this meeting would change the galaxy forever. The meeting took place on a small asteroid between the two fleets. Taman arrived with a full honor guard of 20 soldiers. The humans brought only 5 people. Captain Minsu Kim was smaller than Tai Min had expected. The human stood barely as tall as a young HFY, with pale skin and only 2 eyes. But something in his bearing suggested strength that wasn't immediately obvious. Commander Taman, Captain Kim said, bowing slightly. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. You should thank me by surrendering immediately, Taman replied. You are in HFY space now. Your choices are simple. Submit to the Empire or be destroyed. Dr. Hyojin Park, the human scientist, stepped forward. We appreciate your directness, Commander, but we've traveled very far to make contact with other intelligent species. We're hoping for something more productive than conquest. Taman studied the humans carefully. They showed no signs of fear, despite being vastly outnumbered. Either they were incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. You don't understand, he said. The HFY Empire has conquered 800 worlds. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. No species has ever successfully resisted us. Captain Kim nodded politely. We understand your position, Commander, but we must respectfully decline your offer. Humanity has fought too hard for freedom to give it up now. Then you choose death. We choose to defend ourselves if necessary. The meeting ended there. Both sides returned to their fleets. Taman immediately sent word to General Wu Jin requesting permission to destroy the human fleet. Permission was granted within hours. What happened next would be remembered by military historians for centuries. The HFY attack began with standard tactics. Massive warships advanced in formation, energy weapons charging for a devastating first strike. They expected the human ships to either flee or die quickly. The humans did neither. Instead, the small human fleet scattered in all directions, moving with impossible speed and coordination. Their primitive chemical rockets somehow allowed maneuvers that HFY gravity drives couldn't match. How are they moving so fast? Taman demanded as his gunners tried to target the darting human ships. Unknown, Commander, Officer Jun replied. Their acceleration rates are off our charts. No living being should be able to survive those forces. The first human attack came without warning. A small fighter craft barely larger than a HFY shuttle slammed directly into the bridge of Admiral Kyung-ho's flagship. The impact killed the admiral instantly and crippled the ship's command systems. Did that pilot just ram us deliberately? Taman asked in shock. Confirmed, Commander. The fighter was fully functional when it hit. The pilot chose to sacrifice himself. This was unthinkable. No sane being would deliberately crash their ship into an enemy vessel. It was suicide. But the human attacks continued. Small ships loaded with nuclear explosives flew directly into HFY warships. Fighters that had been damaged beyond repair turned themselves into guided missiles. Human crews seemed to have no concept of surrender or retreat. The ground combat was even worse. When HFY boarding parties entered damaged human ships, they found soldiers who fought with terrifying intensity. Humans continued fighting even after being wounded in ways that would incapacitate any HFY warrior. Lieutenant Dong Hyun Lee exemplified this human madness. His fighter had been hit by 3 separate energy blasts. Any rational pilot would have ejected or surrendered. Instead, Lee aimed his burning ship directly at the bridge of General Wu Jin's command vessel. The general watched in horror as the human fighter approached. His gunners fired everything they had, but Lee's ship kept coming. At the last second, the human pilot looked directly through the bridge windows and smiled. The impact nearly broke the ship in half. General Wu Jin survived only because he had been standing near an emergency blast door. But 12 of his senior officers died, including his tactical commander and navigation specialist. "This is impossible," he said as damage reports flooded in. "No species fights like this. Where is their sense of self-preservation?" Dr. Yuna was studying the battle from her science station. The readings made no sense. Human biosignatures showed stress levels that should have caused immediate collapse, but the humans kept functioning. "Commander," she called to Taman, "I'm detecting something strange about the human physiology. Their bodies are producing massive amounts of adrenaline and other combat stimulants. It's like they're designed for extreme stress situations." "Designed for stress?" "Their bodies are reacting to combat by becoming stronger and faster. I've never seen anything like it." Meanwhile, Dr. Heejin Park was conducting her own analysis aboard the human command ship. She had managed to capture detailed scans of several HFY soldiers during the boarding actions. "Captain Kim," she said, looking up from her instruments, "you need to see this data. What did you find?" "The HFY aren't as tough as they think they are. Their bone density is actually lower than ours. Their muscle structure suggests they evolved in lighter gravity, and their respiratory system shows they're adapted to a thinner atmosphere." Captain Kim studied the readings. "Are you saying they're not actually from a death world?" "I'm saying their death world isn't as deadly as Earth. Not even close." This revelation changed everything. The humans had been fighting defensively, trying to protect themselves from superior opponents. Now they realized they might actually have advantages. "Signal all ships," Captain Kim ordered. New tactical doctrine. "These aliens are tough, but they're not tougher than us. Fight accordingly." The human response became even more aggressive. Ships that had been retreating suddenly turned and attacked. Human soldiers stopped defending and started advancing. The entire character of the battle shifted. Taman watched in growing alarm as his fleet began taking serious damage. HFY ships were larger and had better weapons, but human ships were faster, and their crews seemed utterly fearless. "Commander," Officer June reported, "we've lost 14 ships. Human casualties appear minimal. How is that possible?" "They're using their damaged ships as weapons, sir. Every time we think we've destroyed a human vessel, they ram it into one of ours." The battle continued for 6 hours. By the end, the HFY fleet was in full retreat. They had lost 22 ships and over 30,000 soldiers. The human fleet had lost only 8 ships, but those ships had taken 40,000 HFY with them. General Wu Jin called for withdrawal. For the first time in HFY history, an Imperial fleet was retreating from a smaller enemy force. As the HFY ships limped away, Captain Kim sent one final message. "Commander Taman, this is Captain Kim. We regret the loss of life on both sides. Our offer of peaceful contact remains open. We hope future meetings can be more productive." Taman stared at the message in disbelief. The humans had just defeated a HFY fleet, and they were still talking about peace. Dr. Yuna approached his command chair. "Commander, I've completed my analysis of the human combat data. You're not going to like what I found. Tell me." The humans were holding back. Based on their ship capabilities and crew performance, they could have destroyed us completely. They chose not to. They showed mercy. They showed restraint. There's a difference. "Commander, these humans fight like nothing we've ever encountered. They're not just willing to die for their beliefs, they're willing to kill for them, but they're also willing to show mercy to defeated enemies. Taemin looked back at the human fleet, now growing smaller in the distance. Everything he thought he knew about warfare had changed in a single day. The Vexhai had always believed they were the ultimate predators because they came from a hostile world. But these humans seemed to come from someplace even worse, and somehow they had learned to be better than their environment. Emperor Jae-sung received the battle reports with growing disbelief. For 2,000 years, no Vexhai fleet had ever retreated from a smaller force. Now General Wu Jin was requesting reinforcements to deal with 20 human ships. "Explain this to me again," the Emperor said to his council. "A single squadron of alien vessels defeated our sector fleet?" Intelligence Director So Young stepped forward. "Not defeated, Your Majesty, but they inflicted enough damage to force a tactical withdrawal. The humans fight with strategies we've never encountered." "What kind of strategies?" "Suicide attacks, ramming maneuvers, combat after mortal injury. Their soldiers continue fighting under conditions that would incapacitate our warriors." The Emperor studied the tactical data. The numbers made no sense. How could such a small force cause so much damage? "Director So Young, I want a complete analysis of these humans. Find out everything about them, where they come from, how they think, what makes them fight so effectively." "Already underway, Your Majesty. Dr. Yuna has been studying their combat data and biological scans. Her preliminary findings are disturbing." "Show me." Dr. Yuna entered the chamber carrying a datapad loaded with her research. She had barely slept since the battle, working frantically to understand what they had encountered. "Your Majesty," she began, "the humans claim to come from a planet called Earth. Based on their physiology and combat performance, I've attempted to reconstruct the conditions on their homeworld. A holographic display activated, showing a rotating planet. The world looked beautiful from space with blue oceans and white clouds, but the data scrolling beside it told a different story. Earth has a gravity field of 1.0 standard units, Dr. Yuna explained. That's almost as strong as our homeworld Kethmora. Their atmosphere is 21% oxygen, which would be toxic to most species we know. The oxygen level is so high that their entire planet is essentially a fire hazard. The council members looked uncomfortable. A world where the air itself could burn was nightmare beyond their experience. But that's not the worst part, Dr. Yuna continued. Earth experiences what humans call weather. The planet has massive storm systems that move across continents. Water falls from the sky in various forms, sometimes as liquid, sometimes frozen solid. Frozen water falls from the sky, Emperor Jae-sung asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. They call it snow and hail. Some storms produce ice chunks large enough to kill a grown human, and they've learned to live with this as normal." The hologram changed to show Earth's tectonic activity. Massive plates of rock moved slowly across the planet's surface, occasionally colliding with devastating results. "The planet is geologically unstable," Dr. Yuna said. "The ground literally moves and breaks apart. They call these events earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Entire cities can be destroyed in minutes." Director So Young leaned forward. "How does any species survive such conditions?" "By adapting to expect constant danger. Human society is built around the assumption that their environment will try to kill them. They prepare for disasters we can't even imagine." The hologram showed human cities. From space they looked remarkably organized and peaceful, but the data revealed a different truth. Every human settlement includes emergency shelters, disaster response teams, and backup systems for when their infrastructure fails. They assume their technology will break down under stress, so they build redundancy into everything. Emperor Jae-sung studied the images. "Are you saying their entire civilization is designed around surviving disasters?" "More than that, Your Majesty. Their civilization is designed around helping each other survive disasters. Humans have a concept they call emergency response. When one group is in danger, others risk their lives to help them." "They risk their lives for strangers?" "Regularly. It's considered normal behavior. They have organizations whose entire purpose is rescuing people from dangerous situations. This was incomprehensible to the Vexhai mindset. Their culture was built on individual strength and dominance. The idea of risking oneself for others was completely foreign. Dr. Yuna activated another display. But the most disturbing discovery is about their evolution. Earth isn't just hostile to civilization, it was hostile to life itself. Humans evolved alongside predators that were actively trying to kill them. The display showed reconstructed images of Earth's prehistoric life. Massive creatures with claws and teeth dominated the landscape. Some were larger than Vex-High battle tanks. They shared their world with creatures called lions, bears, sharks, and something called a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Humans survived by being smarter, not stronger. They learned to use tools, work in groups, and outthink much larger predators. What happened to these predators? Director So Young asked. Humans either domesticated them, avoided them, or drove them to extinction. But the important point is that humans were never the dominant species on their world. They became dominant by learning to survive everything else. The implications were staggering. The Vex-High had conquered their homeworld by being the strongest predators. Humans had conquered theirs by being the most adaptable. Prey Emperor Jae-sung dismissed his council and called for a private meeting with Ambassador Gi-tae Park. The human representative had been waiting on a neutral station for weeks, hoping for diplomatic contact. The meeting took place in a carefully controlled environment. Ambassador Park was a middle-aged human with graying hair and calm eyes. He showed no fear despite being surrounded by Vex-High guards. "Your Majesty," the ambassador said with a respectful bow. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Ambassador Park, I've studied the reports from our encounter with your fleet. Your people fight with remarkable effectiveness. We prefer not to fight at all, Your Majesty, but we've had a lot of practice surviving dangerous situations. Tell me about your homeworld." Ambassador Park smiled. "Earth is beautiful, Your Majesty, but it's not an easy place to live. We've had ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and countless other challenges. For most of our history, simple survival was a full-time job. How did your species achieve unity? We learned that cooperation works better than competition when facing extinction-level threats. It took us a long time to figure that out. We fought many wars before we realized our real enemy was our environment, not each other. The Emperor considered this, and now you travel between stars offering protection to other species. We offer friendship and mutual aid. When we encountered our first alien civilization, they were being threatened by space pirates. We helped them because that's what you do when someone needs help. Even for strangers? Especially for strangers. Your Majesty, we've learned that the universe is a dangerous place. Species have a better chance of surviving if they work together." Emperor Jae-sung looked at the human ambassador with new understanding. These people weren't conquerors in the traditional sense. They were survivors who had learned that survival worked better as a group effort. "Ambassador, what do you want from the Vex-High Empire?" "We want to prevent unnecessary wars. We've already made contact with 47 other species in this galaxy. Many of them are former subjects of your empire who have declared independence. You're protecting our former slaves? We're protecting anyone who asks for protection. Your Majesty, the galaxy is changing. The old ways of thinking about conquest and dominance are becoming obsolete. Species that learn to cooperate will thrive. Those that don't will face extinction." The meeting ended with no formal agreements, but Emperor Jae-sung had heard enough. The humans weren't just another alien species to be conquered or ignored. They represented a completely different approach to galactic civilization. As Ambassador Park departed, he left behind a data package containing detailed information about Earth and human history. The Emperor spent hours reviewing the material. What he found terrified him more than any military threat. The humans had survived challenges that would have destroyed the Vex-High Empire, and they had done it by becoming stronger together rather than stronger individually. For the first time in his reign, Emperor Jae-sung began to doubt whether the Empire could survive what was coming. General Wu Jin stood in the strategic planning chamber, studying the galaxy map with growing frustration. Red markers showed worlds in rebellion. Blue markers showed human fleet positions. Green markers showed the remaining loyal Vex-High territories. There was too much red and blue, not enough green. "How many worlds have we lost this month?" he asked his intelligence officer. 47 worlds have declared independence, General. All of them are now under human protection." "And our response?" "Limited, sir. Every time we try to retake a rebel world, human ships appear to defend it. They seem to have intelligence about our movements before we make them." This was the nightmare scenario. For centuries, the Vex-High Empire had maintained control through fear and overwhelming force. Now that formula was failing. The humans offered protection without conquest, and former Vex-High subjects were choosing freedom over security. "What about Counselor Chan Wu's proposal?" the intelligence officer asked. General Wu Jin's expression darkened. "Chan Wu is a traitor who has forgotten what it means to be Vex-High. His ideas about diplomatic solutions and peaceful coexistence are weakness disguised as wisdom. Chan Wu had been advocating for negotiations with the humans since the first battle. As a younger officer, he represented a growing faction within the military who believed the Empire needed to adapt or face destruction. "General," the intelligence officer said carefully, "our losses are becoming unsustainable. Perhaps some form of negotiation." "There will be no negotiation." General Wu Jin slammed his fist on the tactical display. "The Vexhai Empire does not bargain with inferior species. We conquer or we destroy. There is no third option." But privately, General Wu Jin knew the situation was desperate. Traditional tactics were failing against an enemy that refused to fight traditionally. The humans didn't try to conquer Vexhai worlds. Instead, they simply defended any world that asked for protection. It was impossible to fight an enemy who wouldn't attack you. On the human side, Admiral Sujin Han was facing her own challenges. Her fleet was spread across dozens of systems, protecting former Vexhai colonies that had declared independence. Each world required a defensive force, but humanity's resources were limited. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from the Lumari system. Vexhai forces are approaching." Admiral Han studied the tactical display. The Lumari were a peaceful species that had been enslaved by the Vexhai for 300 years. When human forces arrived in their system, the Lumari had immediately requested protection. "How large is the Vexhai force?" Admiral Han asked. 47 ships, Admiral, led by General Wu Jin himself. This was more than a raid. General Wu Jin was bringing a significant force to retake one small system. The message was clear. The Empire would not tolerate rebellion. "Order the 5th and 7th fleets to Lumari space," Admiral Han commanded. "We're not abandoning them." The Battle of Lumari became the largest engagement between human and Vexhai forces. General Wu Jin brought 47 warships expecting to overwhelm the small human garrison. Instead, he found himself facing 36 human vessels in a defensive formation around the planet. "Admiral Han," General Wu Jin broadcast on open channels, "you are outnumbered and outgunned. Withdraw your forces and we will spare your lives." Admiral Han's response was broadcast to both fleets. "General Wu Jin, the Lumari people have requested our protection. We will not abandon them. If you want this system, you'll have to go through us." The battle lasted 8 hours. Vexhai ships had superior weapons and armor, but human ships were faster and their crews more creative. Both sides took heavy casualties, but neither could achieve a decisive victory. The turning point came when Lumari civilians began evacuating to human ships. General Wu Jin watched in amazement as humans risked their lives to rescue alien non-combatants. "Why are they doing this?" he asked his tactical officer. "The Lumari are not even the same species." "Unknown, General. Human behavior patterns are inconsistent with our psychological models." Meanwhile, Chan Wu was watching the battle from his own ship. He had been ordered to participate in the attack, but his heart wasn't in it. Watching human ships sacrifice themselves to protect Lumari civilians made him question everything he had been taught about strength and conquest. When his weapons officer reported a target lock on a human evacuation ship, Chan Wu hesitated. "Sir, orders?" Chan Wu looked at the tactical display. The human ship was defenseless, loaded with Lumari refugees. Destroying it would be a military victory, but a moral defeat. "Stand down weapons," he ordered. "Sir?" "I said stand down. That ship is not a military target." His crew looked confused, but they obeyed. Chan Wu had just made a decision that would change his life. He could no longer participate in a war against people who were willing to die protecting others. The Battle of Lumari ended in a tactical stalemate, but strategically, it was a human victory. The Lumari evacuation was successful, and General Wu Jin was forced to withdraw with significant casualties. More importantly, the battle was broadcast across the galaxy. Dozens of species watched human forces risk everything to protect a completely different civilization. The humans gained no territory and captured no resources. They simply prevented a massacre. After the battle, Chan Wu requested a private meeting with General Wu Jin. "General," he said, "I believe we need to reconsider our approach to the human situation. You want us to surrender? I want us to survive. General, we just fought our largest battle against the humans, and the best we could achieve was a draw. Meanwhile, more worlds are declaring independence every day. At this rate, the Empire will collapse within 10 years. General Wu Jin studied the younger officer. Chanwu had served with distinction for 15 years. His loyalty had never been questioned before. What are you suggesting? The humans aren't trying to conquer us, General. They're trying to protect people from us. Maybe it's time to ask why. Because they're weak and sentimental, are they? General, I've studied human military doctrine. These people conquered their entire homeworld. They've survived disasters that would destroy our civilization. And they've built a society that spans multiple star systems without enslaving anyone. Your point? Maybe they're not weak. Maybe they're just different. Maybe there's something we can learn from them. General Wu Jin dismissed Chanwu, but the conversation troubled him. Later that night, he reviewed the battle recordings again. The humans had fought with their usual ferocity, but they had also rescued thousands of non-combatants. They had shown mercy to captured Vex High officers. They had broadcast surrender terms that were surprisingly generous. For the first time since the war began, General Wu Jin wondered if victory was actually possible. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Vex High Empire. They were simply making it irrelevant, and perhaps more disturbing, they seemed to be succeeding. 3 months after the Battle of Lumari, Emperor Jae-sung announced his abdication. The strain of governing a crumbling empire had broken his health and his spirit. Chancellor Ye Jin, a moderate who had quietly supported negotiations with the humans, assumed leadership of what remained of the empire. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had imagined. The age of conquest was ending, and something new was beginning to take its place. 2 years after the war officially ended, peacekeeper Do-hyun Kim stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at the massive spaceport. Humans, Vexhai, Lumari, and others worked together in ways that would have been impossible just a few years ago. The transformation had been remarkable. The Vexhai Empire had dissolved into dozens of independent worlds, most of which had joined the Galactic Protection Alliance. Chancellor Ye Jin led the Vexhai core worlds in an unprecedented experiment in democratic governance. Peacekeeper Kim, a voice said behind him. Do-hyun turned to see Chan-woo approaching. The former Vexhai officer now served as Minister of Reconstruction, overseeing the rehabilitation of former imperial worlds. Minister Chan-woo, Do-hyun replied with a respectful bow. How are the reconstruction efforts proceeding? Better than expected. The agricultural colonies are adapting well to voluntary trade agreements. It turns out that planets produce more food when they're not being forced to ship everything to the imperial core. This was one of many discoveries that had emerged from the Empire's collapse. Worlds that had been oppressed for centuries were now flourishing under self-governance. The human concept of mutual benefit was proving more effective than the old system of tribute and domination. Dr. Yuna approached from the research section of the station. She had been working with human scientists for months, studying the biological differences between species and how they affected social development. Do-hyun, Chan-woo, she said, joining their conversation. I wanted to share some interesting findings from our joint research project. What did you discover? Chan-woo asked. We've been studying why humans developed such strong cooperative instincts while Vexhai evolved to be more individualistic. The answer lies in our different environments. Dr. Yuna activated a portable display showing comparative data about Earth and Kethmora, the Vexhai homeworld. Earth's extreme conditions forced humans to work together or die. No individual human could survive the ice ages, plagues, and natural disasters alone. Cooperation became a survival trait that was passed down through generations. And Kethmora? Do-hyun asked. Kethmora was dangerous, but in a different way. Resources were scarce, and so competition for survival was individual rather than group-based. Vexhai evolved to be strong and aggressive because those traits helped individuals survive. Chan-woo studied the data. Are you saying our entire civilization was shaped by our planet's resource scarcity? Exactly. Neither approach is inherently better or worse. They're both successful survival strategies. But humans learned that cooperation multiplies individual strengths, while Vexhai learned that strength must be maintained through dominance. This research had important implications for the new galactic order. Understanding why different species thought differently was helping former enemies work together. The peaceful discussion was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Emergency broadcasts began streaming to every ship and station in the sector. All vessels. This is Deep Space Monitoring Station 7. We have detected a large fleet of unknown vessels approaching from extragalactic space. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. All military forces are requested to converge on coordinates being transmitted now. Do-hyun, Chan-woo, and Dr. Yuna looked at each other with concern. They had all heard rumors about threats from beyond the galaxy, but no one had expected them to arrive so soon. Within hours, the largest fleet in galactic history was assembling. Human ships arrived first, followed by Vex-High vessels, then ships from dozens of other species. For the first time since the Empire's fall, former enemies were working together against a common threat. Admiral Su-Jin Han commanded the human forces from her flagship, the UES Unity. Chancellor Ye-jin personally led the Vex-High contribution aboard the battleship Redemption. Representatives from 43 different species contributed whatever forces they could spare. The alien fleet that emerged from the void was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Massive ships that seemed to be made of living metal, energy signatures that defied known physics, and a number that made even the combined galactic fleet look small. "This is Commander Zeth 9 of the Harvester Fleet," came the transmission. "We have come to claim this galaxy for the collective. All organic life will be processed for resources. Resistance will result in immediate termination." The transmission cut off. The alien fleet began advancing toward the galactic core, apparently ignoring the defensive forces that had assembled to meet them. Admiral Han opened communications with Chancellor Ye-jin. "Chancellor, it appears we're facing an extinction-level threat. I suggest we coordinate our response." "Agreed, Admiral." "What do you recommend?" "Combined fleet operations. Human ships will provide mobility and tactical flexibility. Vex-High ships will anchor our battle line with heavy weapons and armor. Other species can provide support based on their capabilities." It was remarkable how quickly the alliance formed. Species that had been fighting each other for centuries suddenly found themselves working together with the efficiency of a single military force. The Battle of the Galactic Rim lasted 3 days. The Harvesters had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but they had never faced a united galactic civilization before. Every time they destroyed ships from one species, another species would move in to fill the gap. Human fighters provided reconnaissance and hit-and-run attacks. Vex-High dreadnoughts absorbed massive damage while returning devastating fire. Lumari support ships kept the fleet supplied and repaired. Dozens of other species contributed their unique capabilities to the joint effort. Most importantly, the Alliance ships protected each other. When human vessels were overwhelmed, Vex-High ships moved in to provide cover. When Vex-High ships were damaged, human rescue teams evacuated the crews. The Harvesters found themselves fighting not just individual ships, but an entire civilization. On the 3rd day, the Harvester commander requested a communication channel. "Organic civilizations," the alien voice said. "Your resistance is remarkable. We have processed 17 galaxies, and none have shown such coordination. We propose a negotiated settlement." Admiral Han and Chancellor Ye-jin responded jointly. "What terms are you offering?" "We will spare 10% of your population and relocate them to preserve your genetic diversity. The rest of the galaxy will be processed as planned." "Counteroffer," Chancellor Ye-jin replied. "You leave this galaxy completely and we won't follow you back to wherever you came from." There was a long pause. "You are threatening us?" "We're making you an offer," Admiral Han said. "You've seen how we fight when we work together. Would you prefer to find out what we're capable of when we're really motivated?" Dr. Yuna, monitoring the communications from the science vessel Discovery, smiled as she listened to the exchange. The humans had taught the galaxy something important. Sometimes the best way to avoid a fight is to make it clear you're prepared for one. The Harvesters withdrew from galactic space that evening. Their departure message was brief. "This galaxy is too dangerous to process," marking as unsuitable for collective expansion. In the aftermath of the Harvester crisis, the Galactic Protection Alliance was formalized into a permanent organization. Do-hyun Kim was elected as the first Director General, with Chan-woo serving as Deputy Director and Dr. Yuna heading the new Scientific Cooperation Council. The galaxy had learned that survival wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being part of something larger than yourself. As Do-hyun looked out at the mixed fleet returning to their home systems, he reflected on how much had changed. The Vex-High had evolved from conquerors to protectors. Humanity had found its place as the galaxy's unifying force. Dozens of other species had discovered that cooperation was more powerful than competition. The age of empire was over. The age of alliance had begun, and somewhere in the deep space monitoring stations, sensors were already watching for the next threat from beyond the stars. Whatever came next, the galaxy would face it together,